needed to leave town. We had our healthcare workers leave this morning, mayor and council, and some final buses shortly after that. And the only folks remaining on the ground are the firefighters and folks from the Office of the Fire Commissioner and RCMP who are there to battle the blaze. We do expect some very, very challenging conditions in Flin Flon and in the surrounding community, particularly later this afternoon. The situation there is very, very serious, and we are doing everything that we can to preserve life, but also to preserve people's livelihoods and homes in the region. Because of that same threat, we have also made the decision to evacuate Baker's Narrows, the provincial parks and cottage country in the area there. The community of Sheridan is surrounded by wildfire, and so value protection and firefighters continue to hold it off there in the region. The community of Bassett also evacuated today in the more eastern part of the province. Yesterday we had a fire start in Split Lake, Tatasquiac Cree Nation. The situation there was very concerning for residents and for leadership. I was in touch with leadership in the community many times over the course of the day. Hydro, cell connectivity, providing shelter for folks who had to see their homes evacuated from Tatasquiac are all important considerations we've been working on over the past 24 hours. And then we turned to Pakadawagen, where the situation was very, very dangerous and scary for people in that community overnight. Between the 2 and 3 o'clock hours of the morning, there were many calls for help. In particular, I want to highlight local emergency management officials from the community of Pakadawagen, as well as MKO, the Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew, who contacted us and let us know that the fire situation had worsened considerably, that the airport was being threatened, and that there was a lot of concern and then a desperate need to accelerate the movement of people out of that community. So as I said, the Canadian Armed Forces responded swiftly. They had a helicopter to do reconnaissance on the ground before 6 a.m. Today. A number of helicopters and fixed-wing crafts have been moving people out since then. We have been able to confirm that the airport was not damaged by that fire. Heavy smoke conditions have prevailed there for quite a bit of the day. And so this does provide an additional layer of complexity to what we're trying to accomplish to get people to safety. So, to our fellow Manitobans, I would say over the course of the day today, we can expect thousands of more people from the northern parts of our province to be moved out of their communities or neighboring communities to find their way to safety in other parts of Manitoba, predominantly here in Winnipeg. However, we should also highlight cities like Thompson and Portage-la Prairie and the Pas, among many others, the Opaskwayak Cree Nation, the Norway House Cree Nation, the Nisitchewayasig Cree Nation, who are all welcoming people into congregate shelters. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to visit a reception center here in Winnipeg, and I spoke to many folks who were evacuated from Flin Flon, as well as Creighton, Saskatchewan, and Pakadawagen. I want to take a moment to commend the very compassionate and important work that civil servants, the Canadian Red Cross, folks from the Health Authority here in Winnipeg, as well as from Shared Health, are all delivering, as well as Salvation Army, to care for people during their time of need. Very scary, very tiring, long days for people who've been on the road and in the air to find their way to safety. And very, very long days and very tiring ones at that for the people who are delivering help. So we have a very, very serious situation that continues to cause serious threats in many parts of our province. However, we have the best of the best when it comes to firefighting. We are engaged with local leaders in cities, in towns, and First Nations to ensure that they have the resources that they need to fight the flames and to get their citizens to safety. And so, I know that there is a ton of goodwill and a ton of compassion out there If you want to help, you can donate to the Canadian Red Cross. If one of your friends or family is asking you for shelter and you can afford to provide a place to stay, that does pitch into the overall effort. I also want to thank the numerous businesses and humanitarian organizations who've stepped up to help. You are truly embodying the best of Manitoba. And to everyone who is sharing information, to our colleagues at the federal level, Minister Chartrand, the Prime Minister, Dominic LeBlanc, the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs, everyone who is helping to coordinate our response here in Manitoba, we say miigwech, merci, and thank you very much. So I'm happy to take any questions that folks may have.
Monsieur Kinew, peut-être la situation à Flin Flon en français.
Bien, on voit une situation très grave à Flin Flon aujourd'hui. Ici, sur la carte, on voit qu'il y a beaucoup de feux au nord et à l'ouest de la communauté. Plus tard cet après-midi, on pense que le vent changera et puis va pousser les feux chez eux à Flin Flon. Alors ça, c'est ce qui a forcé la décision du maire et puis des autres chefs là.
Au niveau des ressources pour combattre les incendies, il y avait des pompiers de la Colombie-Britannique. Est-ce qu'ils sont arrivés? Est-ce qu'on attend des ressources d'ailleurs, peut-être sur la planète aussi?
Oui, toujours. Nous sommes dans une situation où la situation est si grave tout partout dans le Canada qu'on a besoin de demander d'aide des autres pays aussi. Alors aujourd'hui, nous avons reçu les nouvelles qu'il y aura 125 personnes des États-Unis qui vont nous joindre pour aider, c'est-à-dire 100 pompiers et puis 25 personnes pour organiser leur effort. So what I was just sharing in French there with our colleague is that the situation across Canada is very, very grave and very serious. And our hearts go out to our neighbors in Saskatchewan who are battling massive wildfires in their province, and we certainly appreciate the engagement. I had the opportunity to speak with Premier Moe yesterday. But because that situation is so serious across Canada, we are now turning internationally for help. I shared some information about Colombian helicopters yesterday, and today we received news that 125 firefighters will be coming from the United States. That's 100 firefighters proper, and then 25 managerial workers who will be able to provide logistical supports. We cannot thank other jurisdictions enough. Folks from Alberta, British Columbia, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, the flight crews and bombers, water bombers from Ontario and from the territories, the other equipment and resources we've received from Quebec, and now turning to our neighbors from the south to help us in our time of need. Not too long after we had Winnipeg firefighter in Los Angeles helping Americans during their time of need, it really does just underline how serious the situation is.
What additional resources does the province need to fight these fires, and do you have enough right now?
Yeah, we will use every assistance that we can get. In particular, in the coming days, actually right before this press conference, I was going back and forth with the federal government, and we are asking for more firefighting equipment and more firefighters. In the coming days, we will also need those logistical supports because this is going to be a continued effort to keep Manitobans safe. So in addition to people who are going to be on the front lines battling the flames, we also need people who are going to be cooks and able to demobilize and move equipment, people who can map the fires as they continue to develop, and then all the transportation and logistics, the mechanics that support the aircraft and all of those things. So it really is an important time where we're very reassured that we can turn to the federal government, the Canadian Armed Forces, our provincial and territorial neighbors, and our neighbors to the south for help in this firefight.
You kind of touched on it before about looking internationally for firefighters, but I'm wondering, like, how does it feel that the provinces, I guess, are almost in a battle for sort of much needed resources during these fires and things like that?
We're working together with the other provinces. One of the things that has emerged, and it's been explained to me as a lesson learned from previous wildfire seasons, is the need to coordinate. And that's where this CIFC, the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Center, which is here, really comes into play. So Saskatchewan has a province-wide state of emergency. Alberta is seeing evacuations. We're in a state of emergency. So to ensure that you can protect your home front while sending resources to a jurisdiction like ours to help out. That's what we're seeing emerge as the Canadian partnership to respond to this wildfire season.
Is it just personnel from the U.S. that's coming, or will there be equipment too?
I think there will be equipment as well.
Like water bombers or?
Well, what we shared yesterday is that there were 2 helicopters, which I believe are Colombian, but they are being deployed from the United States. And then we have these 125 individuals, again, 100 of them firefighters, 25 who are managers to help with the logistical effort.
Mr. Premier, you touched on the fact that the hospital in Courage, I think you said, with the thousands of evacuees coming to, well, mainly Winnipeg, and you said Portage la Prairie, are there any measures being taken with our healthcare system here in Winnipeg to, potentially have new patients, whether that's people dialysis or maybe people have emergencies after they arrive? I don't know. Are there any measures being taken within our healthcare system here in Winnipeg, which is already busy on a normal day?
Yeah. Here in Winnipeg, the conversation started a few days ago with the declaration of the state of emergency around staff. First, around the flexibility to redeploy, the engagement with the healthcare unions so that they're in the loop, and then also the conversation about work-life balance and supports for people who are going to be asked to step up. In the northern region, not only have you had folks leave Flin Flon and other communities who are healthcare professionals, nurses, and others, you're also talking about a coordination effort. And so there we're seeing a telephone line set up so that folks can check in and then get information. And later today, we'll also be sharing news for the public. If you have a family member being moved from a personal care home, from a hospital bed, and you need information about where they're traveling to, about how to connect with them, that 1-800 number will be brought online later today.
So are there going to be, I don't know, overtime hours or additional staff in Winnipeg? Healthcare staff, sorry.
Well, at this point, we're managing things within the existing framework, but because of the state of emergency, we have started those conversations if we need to ramp up efforts.
Premier Kinew, Wednesday we said we needed to evacuate 17,000 people. Where are we at right now in terms of numbers?
Well, today we're going to see thousands of people moving out of northern Manitoba. The Canadian Armed Forces has accelerated their efforts in Pakadawagen, given that really urgent situation overnight. And the Hercules planes are arriving in very frequent cadence in Norway House to move Pimichigamak citizens. So as we get later this afternoon and into this evening, we'll be getting closer to that 17,000 number. So on Wednesday, we said 17,000 people are being ordered out of their homes or being put on notice. Today's the day where the vast majority of those folks will actually have moved from their homes to safety.
And in terms of location here in Winnipeg, I visited 4 centers so far myself.
Yeah.
Do we expect more centers to open? Like
Yes.
Arena?
Some are being-
the options for you?
Well, I'm mindful of the privacy of folks, right? You've probably seen folks are sitting on the front lawn, so to speak, with their bags and personal effects. But we can look at community centers, soccer fields, and private venues, large private venues being stood up to receive people. Not that everyone would necessarily go to a facility like that here in Winnipeg or Portage la Prairie or Thompson, but just what we saw over the past few evenings is that this is not a 9-to-5 operation. We're going to have the capacity to shelter people at 3 o'clock in the morning. We have to plan for the capacity to expand quickly on a very short notice. And so part of what we're doing to prepare is to give people the chance on the back end to get cots ready, materials ready, water ready, food ready to potentially receive more of our fellow Manitobans.
Do you have an example of a large private building, what that means? I know you were trying to respect privacy, but
Yeah. We'll share, I'm sure, if we get to that point. Yeah.
How do you determine, some people are going to hotels, some people are going to congregate shelters, some people are with families, and the Red Cross is, providing support, and there's emergency social services. Like, could you talk a little bit about the distribution? And I mean, if I have a credit card, I can go to a hotel, and then the province will reimburse me later. Like, what's the rollout of this like, depending on what situation you're in? Is hotel for people with special needs or families, or can you just talk a bit about who's getting what and why?
Well, the first principle is that this is one Manitoba and that it's a coordinated approach. So for instance, the reception center I was at yesterday had folks who were coming from the city of Flin Flon, but also the Pakadawagen Cree Nation. And so you have folks who would, perhaps get federal supports, others getting provincial supports, but when they show up at the center, it's just one process. There's just one desk where people are checking in, getting registered, and getting assigned the supports. When we get to who's staying with friends and family, that's effectively self-selected. Do you have that person that you can turn to? As a matter of course, like just in terms of how things have worked out with who's needed that help, a lot of folks from Flin Flon were coming in, and we're going to head out to the congregate shelter yesterday here in the city, as well as the one in Portage La Prairie. Same with some folks from Pakadawagen. The hotel rooms in the province are very, very hard to come by right now. And that's because of previous evacuations. That's because of other folks just having their business, conferences, vacation bookings. And so where we do have access to hotel rooms, it is being prioritized for medical patients and people who have accessibility needs, and for whom staying in a cot in a congregate shelter might be more of a challenge, which is not to say that there aren't people with those issues with those situations within the congregate shelters, just that as we go forward, the people making the plans are doing their best to accommodate those specific needs.
Premier, I was speaking with some folks in Sheridan earlier, and I know they're pretty relieved that there's some resources heading there today, but they had also mentioned, they wish that there was maybe more support on the ground earlier, and I'm just wondering, do you think that it's time, I guess, to hire more in-house wildland firefighters here to have those people be able to go to communities like that earlier?
Well, we are using every firefighter that we have. It's been great to see municipal and local fire step up as well too, folks throughout the province, including southern Manitoba, the Westman region. That's been really great, and we're scaling up the ability to respond in every part of the province. I think what we've seen this wildfire season that's been unique, as the experts have explained it to us, is that in past years you've had one region at a time. The east would have an issue, then the next year it would be the north, and then the following year maybe the west. This year it's every region at the same time. And so this is one of the things that we are in the first instance responding to with the dedication, the professionalism, and the desire to protect lives across Manitoba. And then looking ahead, Manitoba is going to have to build our wildfire service in the future with the capacity to respond to seasons like this.
Just on another note, I know yesterday First Nations leadership said that they were frustrated by what they had called poor communication happening by the provincial and federal government. What do you think, or how can you improve the communication there in the coming days here?
I've spoken to all of the First Nations leaders directly, and have been that were participant of that, and have been in regular touch with them throughout the situation. I think the most important thing for Manitobans to understand is that we need to be calm. The situation can be very concerning, can be very emotional. You could be directly feeling as though your home is threatened, or you could just look at a situation and say, oh man, my fellow Manitoban is going through it right now, is living through so much stress. And I think one of the things, and why I say keep calm and carry on, is that we need to ensure that our actions and the way that we're weighing on this situation is giving the necessary space for those who are leading the efforts, whether the effort is to transport people to safety or to fight the fires, the ability to respond. Questions about accountability, I'm happy to take, and we will have plenty of time to be able to sort through these various issues. But in the emergency situation in which we currently find ourselves, I think it's important that we continue to support the efforts of those who are on the front lines. One comment that was made to me earlier today by one of our experts when it comes to managing emergencies like this is that they compared it to one of those old-time trains where you had to shovel a lot of coal until the vehicle started moving. And the purpose of that metaphor is to, or the image rather, is to illustrate the point that there's a lot of logistical planning that needs to take place before some resources can be deployed. In order for us to be able to have firefighters on the ground, in some of the current situations, we have to have water bombers be able to drop water overhead. In order for that to take place, we probably have to have certain weather and smoke conditions prevail. Similarly with transportation, the Canadian Armed Forces is in the business of meticulous planning before they deploy aircraft or before they deploy their troops to be able even to do reconnaissance in a given area. So as a result of these requirements for planning and the fact that we're responding to many, many urgent situations at once, I understand how Manitobans might look at a given situation and have questions. But I'm here to reassure you and tell you that you have the best people leading the response, that everyone who is working on your behalf is working together, and that we are making important progress to move Manitobans to safety, to push back the wildfires, and to ensure that people will be able to return to their homes and the lives that we're so proud of here in this province.
I'm just wondering as well, I guess you talked about, some of those steps for planning. Is there any areas, and I know it's still like early days, but are there any areas where you look at and think, maybe we should have done this earlier or started some kind of process differently?
The professionalism of the people that we work with is incredible. And if you look at the Manitoba Wildfire Service, parks, the emergency management folks, the healthcare system, law enforcement, the Department of Families, the health regions, and shared health working together, I am inspired by people putting the good of their neighbors first and foremost and working together to stand up an emergency response to a situation that this province hasn't seen before, which is large-scale wildfires in every region of the province at the same time.
Peut-être en français revenir sur les installations à venir dans la capitale manitobaine, peut-être davantage d'endroits pour les gens?
D'où ils vont rester?
Oui, exactement.
Oui,
On parle
yeah.
d'arénas. Est-ce qu'il y a 3 arénas, un terrain de soccer? Est-ce qu'il pourrait y avoir davantage? Puis quel genre d'installation peut-être?
Mais dans les prochains jours, nous verrons plusieurs milliers de personnes qui vont venir ici, au capitale de notre province. Et puis en même temps, nous allons créer des espaces pour ce qu'ils pourraient dormir, dîner, et puis juste passer leur jour avant qu'on pourrait leur retourner chez eux. En même temps, pour rester capable d'accueillir plus de monde, il va y avoir quelques personnes qui vont déménager à des autres centres, Portage-la Prairie, et puis des autres exemples comme ça. Alors, c'est vraiment une capacité que nous espérons va être capable d'agrandir vraiment vite, mais en même temps d'avoir la flexibilité pour peut-être pas juste accueillir, mais sauvegarder des mondes pendant plusieurs journées, peut-être même des semaines.
Il y avait des critiques de certains leaders autochtones. Est-ce que vous leur avez parlé? Est-ce
Oui.
que vous avez réagi à ces critiques peut-être?
Ben, j'étais toujours en train de leur parler. J'ai vu les noms et puis c'était les mêmes noms dans mon téléphone. Alors oui, je comprends que c'est une situation avec beaucoup de défis, mais en même temps, nous sommes toujours en train de travailler ensemble pour livrer des sécurités et puis des autres services à tous les Manitobains, s'ils vivent dans une ville, dans la campagne ou sur une Première Nation.
Just wondering as well, Premier, I guess we heard that maybe New Brunswick was sending some firefighters.
They are.
Do you know
They have, yeah.
how many?
I'd have to follow up. It's a few crews for sure. Yeah.
Could we expect daily updates from you in terms of like pressers or?
Yeah, you will get daily updates for sure. I don't know if we'll be here in room 68 each day. That will depend on the situation. I think today is a serious inflection point for some of the larger northern communities, in particular Flin Flon, Pakadawagen, Tatasquiac, folks who've moved out of Pimichigamak, and so we wanted to provide that information. At the same time, you'll notice that I'm up here alone today. Well, Christine and Kristen are very busy in real time managing the situations with the wildfire service and with the overall emergency management. And so as much as we have an important responsibility to update the public, we also don't want to cramp the style of the people who are actually leading the response too. So it'll be a bit of a balancing act.
Do you know if people heeded your calls not to start fires, just to be careful? You said there were 15 people charged and 21 written warnings issued.
Yeah.
Have you any indication that worked, or are there any more fires that you know of that were?
So those numbers haven't changed dramatically. We could follow up specifically with you. And just to be clear on the context, that was over the whole wildfire season so far. Yeah, it's not like that was in one day or something like that. But again, we're in a wildfire season where we're not seeing rain, where there hasn't been lightning. And so when we do see new starts, as we continue to see, it stands to reason that there's a human cause. Now, I think Manitobans are doing a great job of stepping up. Manitobans are trying to help, trying to donate, trying to figure out ways to pitch in. And so, yeah, delaying the bonfire for a little while now is another way that you can assist.
And just because it got so much attention, the drone operator, do you know if anybody was ever charged, or if there was anything further to an investigation?
Yeah, I think I don't have a specific detail there. From what I understand, the drone was getting in the way of aircraft that were going to be deployed in Saskatchewan. So it may be something that we'll follow up on soon. Yeah.
Besides the States, have you made any requests to CIFC for firefighters from other countries?
Yeah, it's an international effort. One of the things that we need to understand is that when we bring folks from different jurisdictions, there's more support that has to go into place. If we have firefighting crews from Western Canada, some of them will go into the backcountry and camp out, and they're very self-sufficient. But a crew coming from Quebec potentially has rules about they can't stay in the backcountry. They have to be brought out each day. And then now we go to the American crews and potentially other countries after that. It just requires more support, more coordination. And so that's why I think it's going to be somewhat of a step-by-step process.
When do you expect the American crews to arrive?
Very soon. Yeah, very soon.
Do you know what states they're coming from?
I think we'll have more to share as we get closer to them being deployed here in Manitoba. Yeah. All right, we can go to Zoom now.
Thank you, Premier. We have 4 outlets on Zoom today. Just a reminder to reporters, you're allowed 1 question and 1 follow-up. We'll start with the Globe and Mail today. Timur?
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you, Premier, for talking to me. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person today. But I guess my first question is I'm trying to get a sense of what we're expecting this weekend as well, in terms of the evacuation numbers and the fires themselves. So today we're hearing, obviously, overnight, Bissett was impacted, right? And so there's more evacuations. I know you've said that 17,000 people is the number of the people that are now actually coming into these communities, the safer zones. They've started being evacuated from there. But of course, Bissett was not included in that at the time, right? So I'm just trying to get a sense of what that will look like for the weekend, and the fires themselves, if you could please just sort of elaborate on that. Like, what are they looking like? Because we don't have the officials here today, obviously, as they're battling and working on these things. Could you explain to us what those fires actually look like, how bad they are, and what they're expected to be, again, over the weekend?
Well, this afternoon and this evening is going to be a very challenging situation, which is why the Canadian Armed Forces have really accelerated their effort and have dramatically increased the number of aircraft that they're using. And I certainly thank federal officials and Minister Chartrand for the efforts to help on that side. And at the same time, the wind is predicted to change into some unhelpful directions, which are going to be very threatening for the city of Flin Flon, which are going to continue to pose challenges for Pakadawagen and the fire west of Pibichigamak, potentially, as well as Tataskriak, and we're likely going to see the closure of a chunk of Highway 10 for a big part of later this afternoon. Again, please check with local authorities, check with Manitoba 511 about the status of that highway. The reason why I mention it specifically is that that is one of the paths that people would be using after their homes have been evacuated to make their way to the south. So people are going to have to, depending on where they're coming from, maybe make their way over to Highway 6 to travel to southern Manitoba. At the same time, Bassett had been planning over the past few days, and that decision came yesterday and took effect today. So again, another community where we're seeing our neighbors being moved out of their homes, and it's a very challenging situation. It's very stressful for people. People rightfully have so many questions and a desire to fight back against these wildfires that are putting our province into this situation. And so we're taking all that into account and using that intelligence and capacity to fight back against the flames. And later today, you will probably see us getting up to that 17,000 number in terms of people out of their homes. And then as we head into the weekend, pray for rain. We haven't seen rain in the forecast yet. That could really help, sustained rainfall in particular. But in the absence of that, the past few days have been very challenging, and that may continue. So the message to ask Manitobans to be calm and to cooperate with evacuation orders and to give space for firefighters and other first responders to do their work is there, because the understandable stress of an emergency has the impact often of upsetting people, but the way that we can respond is by maintaining our calm, maintaining our control over the situation as much as we have any. And when we do that, I think the clear thinking and cooperation that characterizes Manitobans really shines through.
Thank you, Premier. I have another question from my Ottawa Bureau colleagues that I wanted to ask, separate from the wildfires. I apologize for that. But I want to ask this question on their behalf. There has been some backlash from Indigenous groups in regards to provincial laws that aim to speed up project approvals, as well as to Mr. Carney's proposed One Economy legislation that we reported on at the Globe. Do you have concerns that the current efforts to shorten the timeline for project approvals risks inflaming relations with Indigenous communities? And what will be your advice to your colleagues at the FFM in regards to this?
Here in Manitoba, we've been working closely with First Nations leaders and Métis leadership about making sure that Indigenous nations understand our plans around building up the economy. And we think that taking the time at the front end is going to be the best way to ensure that this window that we have open, where all Canadians want to build our economy, will actually see progress. And so I think the message that I have for everybody in Canada right now is we're feeling a lot of momentum, we're feeling a lot of passion about protecting our country and ensuring that our jobs are safe. And if we spend the right time making sure that Indigenous nations are on board, that we're thinking through the long-term environmental protection, and most importantly, that we're making sure, or rather, as importantly as any other consideration, we're making sure that the decisions we make are going to benefit our kids for generations to come. That's how we can take advantage of this window of opportunity in a very Canadian way.
Okay, thank you, Timur. Next up, we have City News. Kurt, go ahead.
Afternoon, Premier. Speaking to residents today that are still up in Pakadawagen,
They're, of course, describing a more and more dire situation, but expressed some frustration with the perceived lack of communication, that while not knowing when these rescue helicopters are arriving, by not knowing that when they do, it's creating a panic with people rushing to the helicopters, not knowing, if they'll get another chance to get out. What would be your message to those residents where the fear is understandably growing by the hour?
Well, we have to stay calm, and I'd like to reassure folks in Pakadawagen that the emergency management folks you have on the ground there are amazing. I had a chance to speak to them by video chat yesterday evening, and again, they had a lot of questions themselves, and the message I try to share with them is, you folks know what you're doing. You know what the folks in your community need. I had the opportunity to speak to the leadership of the community as well. And again, I can tell you that your best interests and a longer term plan is being put together once you make your way to the PAW and then to Winnipeg. So we're going to take care of you not just today, but also in the days to come. And so let's just work together and let's just maintain that steady hand over the coming days so that we can get through this. It's a tough time. People are tired. It's long days, long hours, stressful conditions. I totally get it. But if we set that positive example for the younger people around us, it really, really pays dividends. It really, really pays off in terms of being able to make ourselves and our community safe.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Now from Global, Catherine, go ahead.
Hi, Premier. Can you talk a bit more about the decision to put the hospital in the PAW on Code Orange? Is there concerns that people from Pakadawagen will come in with injuries?
We have not heard from the local nursing station of any significant injuries. We haven't heard of any thing at that nursing station that would be outside of what they deal with on a normal day. So this is a precautionary measure. Putting the hospital in the PAW on Code Orange is us just trying to be ahead of the curve if things suddenly change into a different direction. Overnight, we had a very, very serious call for help from the community and from the MKO. And so as part of the response, not only did we work with the Canadian Armed Forces on getting more people out faster, but also we put into place these plans in the PAW just in case folks need that additional level of healthcare.
Okay, thank you. And those additional shelters that you expect to stand up over the coming days, is that just going to be in Winnipeg, or are you looking at other cities as well?
Yeah, the city of Winkler has generously offered as well. So it's a province-wide response, which is not to say necessarily that all of these great Manitobans who've stepped up are necessarily going to be hosting people in these congregate shelters. But we've learned over the past few evenings in particular that we need the ability to just quickly scale up to the tune of hundreds of additional beds within the matter of a few hours. And that's outside of bankers' hours, to be specific. So again, having that ability to say Winkler and Portage La Prairie and different venue owners here in the city of Winnipeg and other parts of Manitoba have stepped up to offer shelter to our fellow Manitobans just gives us that much more confidence that we're going to be able to keep everyone safe and keep everyone working together in the coming days.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's everything from Zoom. We'll go back to the room.
Juste une question, vous avez parlé de construire le service de lutte contre le feu. Comment vous allez faire? Est-ce qu'en recrutant ou bien en augmentant le budget?
Oui, c'est toujours une question de planifier pour les ressources humaines et puis les avions et les autres choses, les autres outils qu'on a besoin. Nous avons commandé plusieurs avions plus tôt dans cette année, mais même si on avance l'argent cette année, je pense que c'était 80 millions de dollars, nous ne verrons pas ces avions pour 5 plus années. Alors, c'est une question de planifier et préparer pour les prochaines saisons.
Ce sera dans les budgets, les prochains budgets?
Ah oui, c'était dans le budget cette année déjà. Nous avons déjà commencé ce processus pour améliorer et agrandir les ressources pour le service.
Vous allez recruter aussi des pompiers?
Oui, ça va être une partie du plan. Nous avons livré la formation cet printemps et il y a plusieurs pompiers qui ont pris davantage de cette opportunité, mais c'était un plan qui était construit dans les autres saisons où ce que nous avons vu seulement une région de la province avec un grand défi. Cette année, nous voyons une situation où tout partout dans le Manitoba, dans chaque région, il y a des feux. Alors, nous devons prendre cette leçon et puis planifier pour cette réalité dans les prochaines années.
Anything else?
All right. Thanks, folks.
Merci.
Okay.
Also, we have everyone. Our 1-800 phone line
Okay.
is now live, and I've just got it on this high.
Okay, this is a 1-800 number for patients, families?
Yes.
Yeah?
It's got some for everyone.
Okay, so earlier in the press conference, I mentioned, thank you, Emily Coots. And this is for patients, families who your loved one has been moved from a personal care home or a hospital bed in northern Manitoba. You want to get an update on where they're traveling to, how can you contact them, how can you connect. The first number I'll give you, 204-788-8200, 204-788-8200. That's local here in Winnipeg. And then a toll-free number province-wide in Manitoba, 1-888-315-9257. So 1-888-315-9257. This is live right now. It's hosted by HealthLinks, so you'll have a live person on the other end of the call. And this is Wildfire Health Info. So this is about patients from hospitals and personal care homes who've been relocated as a result of the evacuations. You're concerned about your loved one, you're traveling separately from them, whatever situation that you're confronted with, please reach out, 1-888-315-9257 or 204-788-8200. En français. Alors, s'il y a du monde qui était dans les hôpitaux dans le Nord ou dans les soins de santé pour les aînés, et puis ils ont déménagé ou vous sommes en train de venir ici séparément, que vous pouvez appeler 1-888-315-9257 tout partout dans le Manitoba pour accéder d'informations sur ces patients, ou ici dans la ville de Winnipeg, tu pourrais appeler 204-788-8200. All right, thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.